This film is older than every single human being currently living today. It was filmed at the Whitley family house in Leeds, Yorkshire, Great Britain in 1888.
They used AI to take a closer look at the world's oldest video, and what they found was shocking. Frame by frame, AI revealed strange movements, mysterious figures, and details no one had noticed before. Experts couldn't believe their eyes. Was the past really as simple as history books say? Could there be secrets hidden in the world's oldest video that were never meant to be seen? Join us as we uncover what this ancient footage is trying to show. The video that started it all. The video that would later confuse experts was recorded at a time when moving images were still a miracle. Cameras were heavy, fragile, and difficult to use. Film rolls were short, expensive, and easy to damage. Only a few people in the world even knew how to operate this new technology. Because of this, every early video carried importance, even if it seemed simple. This particular footage was captured during the very early days of motion pictures. It shows a brief moment of everyday life. People move slowly across the frame. Their actions appear ordinary at first glance. Nothing dramatic happens. No major event is recorded. For more than a century, this is exactly how the video was described. Simple, innocent, ordinary. The person credited with filming it was a known pioneer of early cinema. Historians believed the goal was only to test motion, light, and timing. The video was never meant to tell a story. It was meant to prove that movement could be captured and replayed. That explanation made sense, and for decades, no one questioned it. The footage was stored in archives, copied into books, and shown in documentaries. It was labeled as one of the oldest surviving videos ever recorded. Film students studied it. Historians referenced it. Museums displayed still frames from it. Over time, it became familiar. And familiar things rarely invite suspicion. But the age of the video is what made it powerful. Because it came from such an early period, it shaped how people understood the birth of cinema. It was used as proof of how simple life looked back then. Calm, slow, predictable, that image of the past felt safe. Yet, there were problems hiding in plain sight. Records about the exact day it was filmed were unclear. Notes about the location were brief and vague. Some original documents were missing. Others were rewritten years later. These gaps were explained away as normal losses caused by time. Old paper fades, old film breaks. That was the excuse. Another strange detail was how rarely the full footage was shown. Most people only saw short clips or single frames. The same frames were reused again and again. Certain sections were ignored completely. No one asked why those parts were missing from public view. At the time, there was no technology to look deeper. The video quality was poor. The motion was jerky. Faces were blurred. Background details melted into shadows. Whatever secrets the footage held were buried under technical limits. Or so it seemed. As years passed, the video became untouchable. Questioning it felt pointless. Experts believed everything worth seeing had already been seen. The past, they thought, was settled. That belief would later prove dangerous, because when modern researchers finally decided to look again, they did not just see clearer images. They saw reasons to doubt everything they had been told about this video. And that raised a disturbing thought. If this footage was misunderstood for so long, was it an accident of history? Or was it made to look harmless on purpose? And that question leads directly to where the official story begins to crack. A history that felt too clean. For many decades, the official explanation of the video never changed. Historians described it using the same words in the same order. It was always called a simple test film, a harmless look at early life. Nothing more. This story was passed from books to classrooms, from museums to documentaries, without serious challenge. It felt complete. It felt clean. But clean stories can sometimes hide messy truths. One strange detail was how little information existed about the exact moment the video was recorded. The year was known, but the day was unclear. The location was mentioned, but only in broad terms. Written notes from the time were short and unspecific. Some early records were missing completely. Others were written many years later by people who were not there. These gaps were brushed aside as normal losses caused by age and poor storage. Another issue was how carefully the video was presented to the public. Only selected portions were usually shown. Museums and documentaries focused on the same few seconds again and again. Certain frames were rarely displayed. Entire sections were almost never discussed. There was no clear reason for this. The explanation was always technical. The quality was too poor. The frames were damaged. The material was not useful. Yet film experts know that damaged footage can still be studied. Even unclear images can reveal patterns, movement, and context. The decision to ignore large parts of the video feels less like a technical choice and more like a habit, or possibly a choice made long ago that no one wanted to question. There were also signs that early historians may have shaped the story to fit a comfortable timeline. At the time, the world wanted progress to feel slow and simple. Early technology was supposed to look innocent. The idea that something complex or unsettling existed so early did not fit that picture. So the video was framed in a way that felt safe. Over the years, a few researchers quietly raised concerns. They noticed inconsistencies in descriptions. They pointed out missing frames. They asked why certain visual details were never mentioned in official notes. These questions rarely went far. Papers were ignored. Requests for deeper access were delayed. The topic was considered settled, and settled topics are difficult to reopen. Another curious detail was the control of the archives. The original film was not easily accessible. Copies were tightly managed. Only approved versions were shared publicly. Changes in brightness, contrast, and speed were made long before modern standards existed. These edits were said to protect the footage, but they also shaped how it was seen. Over time, these small decisions stacked up. A clean story was built on incomplete information. Each generation trusted the one before it. No one wanted to be the person who questioned a cornerstone of visual history. But technology has a way of reopening closed doors. As artificial intelligence grew stronger, it became harder to justify old excuses. Missing details were no longer invisible. Blurred motion could be slowed. Shadows could be studied. What once looked like damage could now be examined with precision, and that raised an uncomfortable question. If the history of this video was shaped to feel clean, what would happen when someone finally looked at it without those old limits and without permission to ignore what appeared? Why AI was brought in so late? For a very long time, no one felt pressure to re-examine the old video. It sat quietly in archives, already labeled and explained. Experts believed there was nothing left to learn from it. The story was considered finished, and finished stories are rarely reopened. But what changed was technology. As artificial intelligence improved, researchers began using it on damaged photos, old audio, and broken film. AI could sharpen blurred edges. It could slow motion without breaking it. It could separate shadows from objects. It could reveal small details hidden between frames. Suddenly, the limits that once protected old footage were gone. At first, the idea of using AI on the world's oldest video was met with hesitation. Some experts argued it was unnecessary. Others said it could distort history. A few warned that enhancing such an important artifact might create confusion. These concerns sounded reasonable on the surface, but behind them was another fear. What if the video showed something that did not match the accepted story? The decision to use AI did not come quickly. It took years of quiet discussion. Proposals were delayed, funding requests were ignored. When permission was finally given, it came with limits. Only certain tools could be used. Only certain sections of the video could be analyzed at first. The process was cautious, almost nervous. Researchers expected small improvements, clearer motion, better contrast, sharper outlines. They believed AI would only confirm what was already known. Instead, the software began exposing details that no human eye had clearly seen before. Tiny movements appeared where none were expected. Shapes in the background became defined. Objects once thought to be damage began to look intentional. The more the video was processed, the more uncomfortable the results became. Some early findings were not shared publicly. Internal reports used careful language. Words like unclear, uncertain, and possibly were repeated often. Yet behind those words was growing tension. The AI was not inventing details. It was revealing what had always been there. Another troubling detail was how quickly resistance appeared after the first results. Requests to continue deeper analysis were slowed. Access to original copies was restricted again. Some researchers were told to focus on safer projects. Official explanations became cautious, and vague. Supporters of the AI study argued that technology does not create history. It only exposes it. If the video looked different under modern tools, that meant the past had been misunderstood. But not everyone agreed. For some institutions, admitting that possibility would raise too many questions. Why were certain frames never discussed before? Why were parts of the footage rarely shown? Why did early descriptions feel incomplete? These questions threatened more than one simple explanation. They threatened trust. Despite the resistance, the analysis continued, quietly, carefully, frame by frame. And with every pass, the AI revealed more details that could not be explained away as damage or coincidence. By the time researchers realized the full impact of what they were seeing, it was already too late to pretend the video was harmless. Because the next set of discoveries would not just add detail, they would challenge whether the video ever showed what it was claimed to show at all. Frames that should not exist. When the AI analysis reached deeper layers of the footage, the results became harder to ignore. These were not small improvements in clarity. They were changes that altered the meaning of the video itself. Frames that once looked empty or damaged began to show structure. Motion that seemed random now appeared deliberate. One of the first surprises came from the background. Early descriptions had always focused on the people in the foreground. Everything else was treated as unimportant. But when the AI separated shadows from objects, new shapes appeared. These shapes did not move like film damage. They stayed consistent from frame to frame. That consistency mattered. Some objects appeared to reflect light in ways early cameras were not supposed to capture. Others seemed positioned with purpose, not chance. At first, researchers assumed these were recording errors, but repeated analysis showed the same results. The shapes were real parts of the scene. Then there were the movements. When the footage was slowed with modern precision, certain actions stood out. A slight turn of the head, a pause that felt intentional, a shift in posture that did not match casual motion. These moments were brief, but they repeated. The timing felt controlled. Another unsettling detail was how these movements lined up across different parts of the footage. Actions in the foreground matched subtle changes in the background. This level of coordination was never mentioned in early records. According to official history, the video was not staged. It was supposed to be natural. But natural scenes do not usually align so neatly. The AI also revealed objects that seemed out of place for the period. Their shapes did not match tools or clothing commonly used at the time. Even more troubling, some of these objects appeared only in specific frames, as if they were meant to be noticed only under close inspection. To the naked eye, they vanished into blur. Under AI enhancement, they stood out, and this raised a serious problem. If these frames truly belonged to the original footage, then someone had either misunderstood the video from the beginning or chosen not to explain it fully. The idea that such details could exist unnoticed for over a century felt impossible, and yet there they were. As analysis continued, researchers noticed something else. Certain frames seemed unusually degraded compared to the rest. Damage was not spread evenly. It clustered around specific moments that now appeared important. That pattern was difficult to dismiss as accident. The more the AI uncovered, the more fragile the old explanations became. What was once called a simple test film now looked layered, intentional, almost cautious in how it revealed itself. And if these frames were not mistakes, then they raised a final and deeply unsettling thought. If something was meant to be hidden in plain sight, who placed it there, and who decided it was safer not to look too closely? Faces, signals, and hidden intent. When the AI tools were pushed further, researchers stopped focusing only on objects and began to study the people themselves. For decades, experts had claimed that the faces in the video were impossible to read. The footage was too old, too fast, and too blurred. Expressions were dismissed as meaningless shapes created by poor technology. That explanation had gone unchallenged for a very long time. But once the AI enhanced the footage frame by frame, that belief quickly fell apart. The software brought out facial outlines, eye movement, and small muscle changes that had never been visible before. These details showed that the people in the video were not blank or unaware. Their faces carried intention. Several individuals displayed expressions that felt focused rather than casual. Their eyes did not drift randomly across the scene. Instead, they appeared fixed on something specific, often just beyond the edge of the frame. This was difficult to explain. If the video was only a simple test of motion, there would be no reason for such attention. Yet, the expression suggested awareness and anticipation. Some faces looked tense. Others appeared controlled, as if the people were carefully managing how much emotion they revealed. This was not how people usually behave when they think nothing important is happening. The gestures added another layer of discomfort. When the AI slowed the footage and stabilized the motion, certain movements became clear. A hand briefly raised and lowered. A slight tilt of the head held for a moment longer than natural. A pause that seemed placed rather than accidental. These actions were not dramatic, but they were repeated by different individuals. That repetition mattered. It suggested a shared understanding or a silent signal. When these gestures were mapped across the footage, they aligned with changes in the background and shifts in the scene, creating a pattern that had never been acknowledged before. Perhaps the most unsettling detail involved eye contact. Early cameras were unfamiliar and often intimidating. People from that era usually avoided looking directly at them. Yet in this footage, a few individuals appeared to look straight toward the camera, not with curiosity, not with confusion, but with a steady awareness. This suggested they understood they were being recorded and possibly understood why. That idea alone challenged everything historians had claimed about the video. As the analysis continued, the simple explanation of an innocent test film became impossible to defend. The faces, gestures, and timing all pointed toward intent, and that raised a quiet but powerful question that refused to go away. If the people in the video were aware, and if their actions were deliberate, then the video was never just a record of the past. It was something planned. Suppressed interpretations. When AI first revealed the new details in the video, the reaction among researchers was immediate and tense. Some were shocked, some were confused, and others seemed almost afraid. Frames that had been thought unremarkable suddenly showed unusual gestures, objects, and figures that had been completely overlooked for decades. Yet, despite these revelations, very little of the AI's findings made it into official reports or public announcements. It was as if someone had quietly pressed a pause button on the story the video was supposed to tell. Early reactions from the researchers themselves were striking. Some wrote notes that hinted at disbelief, suggesting the footage might show something impossible for the time. Others speculated about hidden messages or intentional staging, but almost immediately, these notes were buried, left out of publications, or marked unverified or unreliable. No one explained why. Even discussions within academic circles were limited, with hints that talking too openly could cause professional or legal trouble. The AI had uncovered details that made people hesitate to speak. Then there were the changes in official statements. For decades, the video was described as simple, ordinary, and historically interesting, but uneventful. After the AI analysis, subtle edits appeared in descriptions, captions, and archival notes. Words were changed, frames were relabeled, and claims about the footage's content became vaguer. In some cases, enhanced frames were labeled distorted or not to be trusted, even though the technology used was cutting-edge and accurate. It created a strange contradiction. The video was more revealing than ever, yet the story told about it was suddenly less clear. Another striking issue was the footage that was never released. Experts now believe that only a portion of the original film reached the public. Entire sequences may have been withheld, either removed from archives or locked away in restricted collections. What was in those missing frames? Were they showing something ordinary or something far more extraordinary that could have challenged the accepted history of the era? Nobody outside a select few seems to know, and even the AI can only analyze what it has access to. This suppression raises a larger question. Why hide or downplay what was in the video? Was it fear of panic, a desire to protect certain people, or a deliberate attempt to control historical narratives? Whatever the reason, the effect is the same. For more than a century, viewers were given a story that fit neatly into history books. Now, with AI peeling back the layers, the silence around suppressed interpretations feels louder than ever. If AI can uncover these hidden truths in one old video, what else might be waiting in other archives? Could there be more films, photos, or documents that have been deliberately kept from the public eye? The discoveries in this footage suggest a wider web of omissions, stories carefully hidden, waiting for modern technology to finally reveal them. The video is no longer just a piece of history. It is a warning that what we accept as truth may have been edited long before we were born. And if these interpretations were suppressed once, who's to say it isn't happening again somewhere else? The cover-up question. The deeper researchers dug into the video, the more it seemed like someone had been carefully controlling the story for decades. It wasn't just about missing frames or vague captions. It was about who had the power to decide what the public could see. Historical archives were not neutral storage spaces. They were controlled by people with influence, people who could edit, restrict, or remove content at will. And in the case of this video, it looked like that influence had been exercised in ways that shaped history itself. Questions immediately arise. Why would anyone alter or downplay footage that seemed ordinary at first glance? The simplest answer is control. If the video contained hints that contradicted widely accepted timelines or events, admitting the truth could force historians to rewrite textbooks, change museum displays, and challenge generations of accepted knowledge. In other words, the stakes were enormous. For decades, it may have been safer for everyone to ignore, deny, or suppress these details rather than face a reality that didn't fit the story we were told. Researchers also noticed patterns in the way information was handled. Some frames were edited or labeled in misleading ways. Reports that hinted at unusual findings disappeared. Requests for access to certain reels were quietly denied, often without explanation. It became clear that the video was not just a record of an event. It was a record under strict supervision. Someone, somewhere, was making sure the footage told only the story they wanted it to tell. The idea of a cover-up opens even bigger questions. If this video was monitored and controlled, what else in history has been altered or suppressed? How many events have been simplified, sanitized, or erased to fit a convenient narrative? The AI analysis suggested that what we see is only a fraction of what actually existed, meaning decades of historical understanding may be based on incomplete evidence. And if one video could hide so much, how many other artifacts of the past are being kept out of sight, waiting for technology to expose them? Even the motivations behind the cover-up remain unclear. Was it fear, political pressure, or the desire to protect powerful figures? Or was it something larger, a systematic attempt to guide human understanding, to shape memory itself? Whatever the reason, the result is the same. A story that was meant to be told honestly has been controlled, edited, and obscured. The cover-up is not just about secrecy, it's about power. Those who control the past control what we believe, what we accept, and what we ignore. And now, with AI peeling back layers of history that were thought settled, it is becoming impossible to ignore the possibility that the past we were taught may have been carefully rewritten. If this video could be managed, controlled, and partially hidden for more than a century, what else is lurking in archives that we will never see? What truths are being kept from us, just out of reach, until technology forces them into the light? The answers may be closer than anyone suspects, and the next discovery could change everything we think we know. What else is being hidden? If the video we've been examining was controlled, restricted, and partially suppressed for more than a century, then it raises a question that is both exciting and terrifying. What else is being hidden from the public? The AI analysis has shown us just one piece of the puzzle, but it strongly suggests that countless other films, documents, and records from the early days of recording technology might still be locked away, unseen, and unexplored. Every frame we have seen so far hints at a much larger story, one that may challenge everything we think we know about history. Historical archives are enormous, often sprawling across multiple countries, private collections, and forgotten storage rooms. Most people assume that these archives are neutral. They preserve history. They do not manipulate it. But the AI investigation suggests otherwise. Decisions made decades ago by curators, archivists, and historians may have deliberately left out material that was too inconvenient or too revealing. Some of the missing early films could show technological feats that were supposedly impossible for their time. Others might depict social interactions, gestures, or symbols that historians never thought existed a century ago. And then there's the question of context. A single frame can tell a different story, depending on what comes before and after it. If the sequences that were withheld contain crucial context, then decades of interpretations, everything from textbooks to documentaries, could be misleading. In other words, history may have been quietly rewritten by omission. Researchers are already speculating. Could there be other videos that, like this one, reveal figures in the background who were intentionally left out of official reports? AI has made it possible to see things we could not see before. Tiny movements, faint shapes, patterns invisible to the human eye, but even it is limited to what survives. If what remains is already this revealing, the footage that was hidden or destroyed could hold even more explosive evidence. There are also questions about who controls these materials today. Some archives are private, held by wealthy collectors, or protected by institutions that have a vested interest in keeping certain narratives intact. Others are government-controlled, restricted under the guise of national security or privacy, but the restrictions may also protect reputations, institutions, or events that the public was never meant to scrutinize. The AI findings raise a troubling possibility that much of what we assume is historical truth has been curated not for accuracy, but for convenience and control. Another layer of concern is the fear that modern technology is exposing lies that were meant to remain hidden. For more than a century, certain narratives were accepted because no one could prove otherwise. Grainy, low-quality footage could be dismissed as unclear or unimportant, but AI can enhance details, slow down motion, detect faces, and even analyze micro-expressions frame by frame. Things that were once invisible are now visible, and they often contradict the clean version of history we were told to believe. The implications are staggering. If this video is part of a broader pattern of hidden records, it means that the past is far less reliable than we imagined. Events, decisions, and even cultural movements could have been influenced by factors deliberately erased from public view. Entire periods of history may have been smoothed over, sanitized, or selectively interpreted to fit a preferred narrative. And if we now have the tools to see through those edits, the consequences could be enormous, not just for historians, but for how society understands itself. Some scholars worry that exposing too much could cause public shock, discredit long-held beliefs, or undermine institutions. Others are concerned about the ethical implications of revealing private or dangerous knowledge. The result is a strange tension. Technology allows discovery at an unprecedented scale, but human caution, and perhaps human fear, still limits what is revealed. The balance between truth and secrecy is being tested, and we are only at the beginning of understanding its reach. If this video could be controlled and partially hidden for over a century, then it seems almost certain that other treasures or secrets remain locked away. The AI has opened a door, but it is only a small crack in a massive wall. What lies beyond could challenge everything we think we know, or it could confirm that the story we were told was only a fraction of the truth. Either way, it is a question we can no longer ignore. How much of our past is real, and how much has been carefully hidden from our eyes? The journey into the world's oldest video may have started as curiosity, but it is ending with a warning. The past is alive. It is being watched, and it may be far stranger than we were ever taught to believe. And if one film could hide so much, the archives are whispering that there is far more waiting just beyond our reach, ready to be uncovered by those bold enough to look. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.